Welcome to What's Up Wichita. We're here with Mayor Brandon Whipple. On this episode, Mayor Whipple will take a look back at 2022 and preview what's to come in 2023.
What's up, Wichita? This is your Mayor, Brandon Whipple. We are actually filming this show a little bit different than we usually do, so thank you for being with us. We are first starting off with really talking about our friend Katie, who is a World War II veteran who just turned 102 years old. Katie is a World War II veteran who had a celebration over at the American Legion this past week, and really, it was an absolute honor to meet with her. She had tons of energy, and when I said happy birthday, she actually responded with I plan on having many more birthdays after this. So hopefully nice. Next year we can go and celebrate Katie's 103rd birthday, but just happy birthday, Katie. Thank you for your service, not only to our nation, but also to the city of Wichita, just with your presence and continuing to inspire us and that next generation of folks who have that heart to serve.
So we like to kick our years off with sharing some stats. The other week you shared some just like fun facts about all of the things we accomplished last year. Would you share some of those with us?
Yeah, definitely. So first we have Megan with us from Communications, and we are just doing a year in recap. And I got to really credit Megan, who pulled out some of these details over this last year. So just as a recap on what we've been up to as a city of Wichita, we have our fire department has responded to 58,400 incidents this past year. We had 18,700 visitors to our neighborhood resource centers. We took residents on nearly 6,000 O.J. Watson Park train rides, and I'm sure my kids were quite a big chunk of that 6,000, to be honest. We gave over 1,100 pony rides over at. That's a lot of ponies, and. Those ponies are troopers. We had over 3,700 swim lessons offered at our aquatic centers. We had over 61,000 visitors to our pools, over 174,000 rounds of golf that was played. Golf has this incredible renaissance right now, where I think if we were to ever say there were silver linings during COVID, it got people not only back to our parks, but back on our golf courses. And we're seeing the success of that now, where the golf program is much more stable, and we have 174,000 rounds of golf this last year.
That's amazing.
So we removed library fines from over 41,000 library customers by going fine-free, which means we have 41,000 library customers who can now get back into the library, might not have been able to afford a fine, and now can utilize our resources and hopefully be able to get into some of our increased resources as well that we've been able to work on for the last year and a half. And we lent out over 1,148,000 physical library materials.
Wow.
Customers borrowed over 368,000 digital library materials. And that's what I was referring to as during COVID, we actually really beefed up our digital library offerings, and we see that folks are still taking advantage of that. So if you haven't made it to one of our libraries in the last year or so, make sure you go out. We have a lot of new stuff happening in our libraries, a lot of great energy, particularly with our new library director and staff
Jamie.
Over there.
Yeah, she's great.
She does amazing stuff.
Yeah. I have two more stats for you that were just shared recently from staff members. The first of all is the memoir from former Prince Harry came out, and there are over 150 people on the waiting list for our library to read that. So if you haven't picked up a copy,
the memoir of Prince Harry.
Prince Harry, yeah, I think it's called Spare. So pretty popular read. So
have we done a financial analysis on how much it would cost us to meet that need of supplying the majority of Wichitans with Prince Harry's memoirs? Have we done that yet?
We might have to purchase like several hundred more copies. So get on the wait list if you haven't already, if you want to read Spare. And staff also told us that they did the final tally for potholes, one of our more popular requests that we get from residents. They filled over 84,000 potholes last year.
84,000 potholes
84,000.
last year. Somebody should tell Facebook.
Yeah.
Because I get a lot of comments about potholes on Facebook, and 84,000 potholes, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, and one of the great things that we're always trying to push people is toward Access Wichita, accesswichita.com. You can go report potholes, you can put a location, you can even track the progress of filling that potholes, and most of them are filled within 24 hours.
Which is amazing. And that's just again, we got to talk about some of the advancements that we've have seen with our technology, with our website, but also with different apps that we are integrating into our city. What is the site that folks can go? If you, instead of going just to an email, you can actually go pinpoint where a pothole is, and it goes right to our public works department, right to the folks who actually respond to that without having to go through elected officials. And as you mentioned, you get a faster response that way. Could you just expand on how would folks who are watching this show be able to tap in that resource?
We have links. The easiest, we have a direct link, which is accesswichita.com, and you go and you can report potholes, neighborhood issues, dogs, roosters. Roosters is one that we've had frequently. I've seen 4 rooster requests, so we can't have roosters.
Like people are reporting their roosters?
Yeah, people are reporting roosters. Can't have roosters in the city limits.
Rowdy roosters.
Yeah, rowdy roosters are not allowed in Wichita. So yeah, you can report those. You can report trash. You can even report streetlights, which are overseen by Evergy mostly, but we still communicate with their system. So lots of things you can report there. If you see a sign down, or if your exact issue isn't addressed, choose a drop down. Write a description and sign up, and you can track its progress and contact staff. So, really useful tool.
Excellent. Also, our public work crews, they just work so hard beyond the 84,000 plus potholes. As we film this, we have snow in the forecast, and they have been preparing for that around the clock. Our snowplow operators, they're on track to be out there, make sure that we have our streets as safe as possible. But also, my understanding is you can actually track them as well.
Oh yeah, you can track our snowplows, wichita.gov/snow removal. We do have some rain, I think, ahead of the snow, so sometimes we can't pre-treat if there's rain because it washes everything off. But they monitor that. I mean, they're up 24/7. Take shifts, 12-hour shifts, so they work really hard.
And that's a good point as well. Where if when we are expecting snow, if there is rain, just a reminder to folks, just so you can prepare for your morning commute, we will pre-treat if it's not rain.
Yeah.
And if there is rain, then before the snow, then that pre-treat actually washes off, right? Like, so it's not really effective. But we usually get really sophisticated plans from our staff when it comes to not just the weather we have, but the particular type of weather. So, hats off to them. Thank you to our public works for all the work that you do. So what else is coming up in 2023, Megan?
We've got so much. We've already done some this year. I think that you had a big announcement with Chief Snow this week regarding Narcan. Could you expound on that just a little bit? Yeah,
definitely. And thanks for bringing it up. We all know, sadly, that Wichita is not immune to the fentanyl crisis that's really just attacking our nation. When I first became mayor, I talked to the previous chief of police about, do we have the same opioid crisis as other states? And really, his response was, well, we had more of an issue with methamphetamine. Well, now we're seeing with fentanyl, where sadly it's everywhere. Now fentanyl is becoming one of the top killers within our community, and it's for a few reasons. Just some background on what fentanyl is. It is a synthetic opioid that actually just a very small pinch of it can kill you. And one of the issues we're having is folks who might think they're taking a particular drug or substance, and it actually has fentanyl in it. Stuff is being laced with fentanyl, so people are overdosing. And one of the silver linings, I guess, with an overdose on fentanyl versus an overdose on a different type of drug is that you can reverse that overdose with a Narcan type product, rather it's Narcan or one of the other type products. And what this does, it actually will save a life so long as they can get that Narcan to the suspected victim within a certain amount of time. So we were able to work with with our fire chief, Chief Snow, and get Narcan into the hands of our first responders, our firefighters on the scene, so that if they do encounter someone who is sadly who might be suffering from an overdose, they can save that life right there. And what's shocking, I think, is a lot of folks might not know that up until now we didn't have that. Our firefighters didn't have that in their arsenal, but they're usually the first on the scene. Our firefighters usually get out to any emergency, and they're the ones first, so it makes sense that they would have access to this product. So if they are first on the scene, they can cut the time between when someone who might have lost oxygen to their brain because of the overdose, they can reverse that and save that life, so we can get these people the treatment that they need the help that they need and get them, back on their feet. That's the ultimate goal, is to make sure that, Wichitans who are struggling have that pathway back to becoming their best self. And so, yeah, we had a monthly update with Chief Snow, and in addition to many other great things happening within our fire department, this was one I thought was very newsworthy and prevalent because, again, we hear about just the struggles of opioid products and fentanyl. And it's important to know that the city of Wichita, we are taking this problem head on. We are going to implement the very best strategies to save lives and then to also try to create opportunities for folks who might be struggling with addiction.
Yeah, I know that we've had some losses this year from some of our unhoused residents with Narcan, and this is just one of the things that we're doing to serve all residents, but also our unhoused neighbors. What are some other things that we're currently doing to serve the homeless population?
So that's another thing that comes up quite a bit, is we get folks who talk about the homeless population, that you see usually downtown, and there's a few things to this topic that we have to talk about. First of all, homelessness is a spectrum. Usually there's folks who are housing insecure. They're sleeping on couches, they just lost their job, and they might have lost their house, but they can get back on their feet pretty quick. The folks who I think, are more prevalent, that when people who talk to me about, they're usually talking about the folks who are living outside, under a bridge, living frankly, in these conditions that none of us would want a loved one to be living in. Yeah. And what we're trying to do now is take advantage of federal opportunities that, frankly, are one in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunities to acquire an asset. To figure out what can we do to actually acquire an asset, rather it's a building, in which we could create a one-stop shop for someone who's experiencing homelessness to not only get the housing resources that might be available to them, but also to address some of the underlying variables or issues that cause people to remain in this cycle of chronic homelessness. And it's real sad because the data actually shows that a lot of the folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness, unhoused, living on the streets, these folks might have some type of mental health issue that's undiagnosed or untreated, or they might have a substance abuse issue, and many of them actually have both. They're trying to use a substance to medicate for a mental health issue, but of course that's not the best way to go about it. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're working with our partners who work in this space, the nonprofit community, the faith-based community, who have been serving this population with services really for decades, and trying to figure out how can we come alongside these folks with our assets, with some of this government money that we're able to get to complement the work that they're doing, so that we can reach what's called functional zero, and that's the gold standard. Yeah. And other states have done it. It's just, it takes a lot of work, and you have to be willing to take risks with new practices that are now considered best practices, but they deviate from just the shelter model. So as we look forward, we need to stay vigilant on trying to get this population services they need so that we can reduce the amount of people going into homelessness. And that's what functional zero is you have less people going into homelessness than you have getting housed, so that more people who might become homeless, they get back on your feet faster, and you eventually will hit zero, or functional zero, which is where we want to be as a community.
That's amazing. I know that you shared how homelessness is going to be a heavy priority for us in the next budget cycle, which is kicking off now. But what are some other priorities that you see for funding for the next year?
So homelessness is a big part of my target, my goal, for a couple of reasons. One, because we're too good of a city to have people, actually our residents, people in Wichita, not getting the needs that their needs met. I think we had 77 folks actually pass away by living outside. We're better than that. We can address that.
Yeah.
So it's a top item for me because it's a challenge. It's a hard one. Over the last few years, we've gotten a lot of stuff done that people said we couldn't get done. So why not take on these big ones that, frankly, folks say we should address it, but it's a reach. It's going to take a lot of work. Another one I want to attack really is public transportation. Yeah. I think that's an interesting issue that folks have brought up to us, as we wish that business community and folks who rely on public transit, wish we had a third shift or a bus for a third shift. We wish that we had more opportunities to get folks to or from where they need to be. And that's going to take some creative public policy. It's a lift. It's a big challenge. It's one that people have talked about solving for a long time, but haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that this past a few years, we've gotten stuff done that used to be almost unreachable. These goals. Like we have done more to diversify our economy than at any point. We balanced our budget. We have taken a larger footprint into social services as we respond to the needs of the community. So we've done stuff that people have said is impossible. And I think as we look forward, I'm attracted to a challenge. So I think that homelessness and also public transportation is going to be the biggest challenge because other councils haven't been able to solve that yet. So I want to be in that space. But I know there's a whole list of other priorities that other council members are hearing from the community, and our budget is really the vehicle to get things done. So our goal during a budget cycle now is to have people come in and tell us, okay, well, what do you want to see out of your city? In addition to some of these top items. It ranges everywhere from dog parks to green space to do you have a plan for trees? And then these are very important issues. More bike-friendly lanes. Like these are very important issues to many people, and they're not, I guess, that the top tier issues you see on the news every night. So we're looking really for folks to now take this moment to communicate with your city council person or with me and with the city. We have, and Megan could tell us about the different pathways to get your priorities sent to us. The goal is to take those issues and to utilize our budget to make progress on those issues. And it's better to start this conversation now than waiting until July when we actually start really jumping into the budget stuff.
Very much today is our first day on our citizen feedback platform, specifically dedicated for Citizen Feedback Forum. We put our first budget post up, so go check that out. It's linked on our website, on all of our social media. You can also just send us messages or emails, and that really does shape what we're asking throughout the budget process. So.
And it's big because a lot of these, we can actually integrate these programs into existing programs, which does a better job when it comes to community service. If you are going to one of our community centers, as we just listed, many people have this past year, being able to see our progress, but also give us feedback, I think is very important. As a city, we want to continue to improve. In a budget cycle, I am proud to say that for 3 years in a row, not only have we balanced the budget, really in some crazy times to be governing. This has not been an easy 3 years. I got into...
You had a hard first year.
In the first year, it was interesting because I got into the first year, we actually had to strip $14 million from our budget with the anticipation that we wouldn't have federal help during COVID because, there's no playbook during that.
No.
And we did. And I remember at that moment thinking back to my legislative experience where we were always in a budget crisis. But when it became time to rebuild that budget, we didn't just go back to, okay, what was the old plan? We actually adjusted that plan to reflect the needs of the community and, frankly, the changes in the economy. I'm really proud of what we've done in the last few years, given how just, frankly, a lot of times it felt like you're kind of flying a plane while building the plane. At times when you're getting through a global pandemic or the economic negative effects of a global pandemic with the supply chain, international markets. But in Wichita, and it's not because of the elected officials, it's really because in Wichita, it's a bit of an all-hands-on-deck approach with the business community, with the nonprofit world, with our educational institutions, K through 12, plus our colleges, and of course the elected officials, not only in the city, but also our friends across the street in the county, to take on these big issues. So I'm very proud of what we've gotten done, but what that does, it really makes me even more excited about what we can do in the future. And getting back to the basics and improving what we already do well, I think is going to be a big push this next coming year.
Definitely. You mentioned working with partners, and one big thing that the council does is work with our partners in Kansas, your background. But we have set out some lobbying priorities for the year for the council to go up and work with the Kansas legislature to help push to make Wichita better. What are some of those big issues that we're pushing for this year?
So there's a few things I think is interesting about our new approach when it comes to working with our partners at the state level. And you're right, I'm actually a recovering state legislator, and it's a strange world up there, but they know that the majority of the tax base actually comes from Wichita. And frankly, we have to be leading when it comes to ensuring that our tax dollars benefit people in Wichita. So we've actually teamed up with not just passing our own, we call it our legislative agenda, hey, these are the priorities we're interested in as a city, but we have created a joint agenda with the county, with the business community, and with other partners who have an interest in making sure that the legislature keeps Wichita and our community and our region in their mind when they're making decisions. So it's been very successful. Last year we actually got a lot of our stuff done, economic development type stuff in particular. We're seeing just unprecedented growth when it comes to our higher education opportunities. Now downtown, we have a medical school. We now have WSU Tech is creating a culinary arts school, and we're seeing some movement with Wichita State, who's teaming up with KU to provide another medical
campus.
Campus
so
biotech.
Cool.
So I think while we think about the priorities of our legislative agenda, we're going to have to move with different opportunities come up, but some of them are going to be big. We want more mental health beds. We want funding for that biotechnology campus to go downtown. That's going to be a game changer. And also we need to work side by side with the Department of Commerce when it comes to attracting and retaining new businesses here in Wichita. Just this past week, if folks might have missed, we had SpaceX come to Wichita to expand their footprint as far as they already have some contracts with different suppliers here, but they actually want to expand and offer more contracts to Wichita employers to create rocket parts. And you think about this, maybe a year and a half ago when we had Blue Origin, who came and very similar, where they came and they wanted to utilize the talent here in Wichita to help build satellites and rockets as well. So that's another thing that the state can help us out with is, are they helping us create the environment in which Wichita and Kansas stands out as that economic renaissance when it comes to space, not just aerospace with planes, but also objects that are actually in space. So we got a lot of opportunity, but we do better when we're all in a boat rowing together in the same direction. And in the past, sometimes that boat gets rocky, but if you're rocking the boat, then that means you're not rowing. You're not pulling, right? So right now, we got to continue to make everyone pulling in the same direction. If we do that, Wichita as a whole is going to benefit.
I love that. All right, I think we have time for one more question. One thing that we frequently get asked about is the future of Century 2. Are we working to invest in the facility? What's the future of that building?
It's a really good question. When I was first elected in 2019, that was a big topic. Of course, since then we've gone through just a complete crazy economic climate, right? So that those conversations got put on hold, and then also the future of conventions got somewhat changed, right? Especially with Zoom and its other technology, conventions are becoming much more regional. So as we think big, I think a lot of what our development we're seeing is not on the Century 2 side of the river. We're actually seeing a lot more economic growth by the ballpark. And I think we're going to see more of a push to develop that side of the river by the ballpark, really just responding to the economic opportunities and energy there. Century 2 itself, it's a public asset. And as such, regardless where you stand on the issue, do you like Century 2 or not, it's our responsibility to uphold a public asset to the best ability that we can. So what we've done is we actually invested $18 million to do the repairs on Century 2 and a lot of these repairs haven't been budgeted in the past because the future of Century 2 has been in question. So we're actually going to reinvest to make Century 2 the best Century 2 it possibly can be. And that's on the money side. That's on the experience side. On the politics side, we passed a council policy that says if Century 2 was to ever be replaced or removed or anything, and not just Century 2, but also the old library, we would go to a public vote first. And I think that's really important because one of the things that came out of that discussion about the future of Century 2 and frankly the future of downtown is where does the public have their voice? And if folks can get out and actually vote on a vision, if we're going to change that area, then we're going to give them the opportunity because we're in the business of really doing what the majority of Wichitans want to see done. And so that's going to be my stance as we move forward.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, Mayor, for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Megan, for joining us. And thank you to our audience for joining us on this episode of What's Up, Wichita. We try to be as active as possible on social media, so please feel free to reach out with any questions on our Facebook page, our official City of Wichita Facebook page. We are on Twitter. We're also on Instagram. I think Megan has a TikTok account, unless the governor canceled that. Anyways, but please feel free to reach out. Also, if you have a question or even a video in which you want to be featured on our next episode asking the question, please send that to social@wichita.gov, and we'll be happy to take that on to our next show. Again, thank you for tuning in.
There are about 160 lane miles of dirt streets in Wichita, many of which are in established areas developed decades ago. Property owners in the affected neighborhoods have opted to not have their streets paved for many reasons, including the financial burden of special assessment. Recently, the City Council approved a new program to gradually pave these streets. A total of $31 million is budgeted over the next 10 years, which is expected to pave 25% of Wichita's dirt streets. The program's first priority is to pave dirt streets in close proximity to schools. Once those streets are completed, paving will be prioritized using U.S. Census block-level poverty data. Specifically, blocks with the highest percentage of individuals below the income poverty level will be prioritized first. This paving process will not include curb, gutter, or surface draining improvements. For more information, please visit wichita.gov.